Biocon's just got a shot in the arm with the European and Australian pharma watchdogs giving their approval for a biosimilar used to keep blood sugar levels in control. The medicine, which is jointly being developed with Mylan, has an approximate market size of $1 billion in Europe. Joining us to talk about this particular medicine, other biosimilars in the pipeline, the prospects for the business, and of course the economy as well, is the chairperson and managing director of Biocon, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Also joining us, of course, here is Darshan, who understands Biocon better than any of us do. Kiran, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Bloomberg Quint. I know we have a bunch of questions on the product pipeline, on the regulatory situation. But before we get into that, we've just begun a new fiscal year. We're going into an important election in your state. In a few months from now, very quickly, we will look at other elections. Next year will be the main general election. So the environment around us is fraught with economic news and political developments. From where you sit, how do you see the economy today?
Well, I do believe that, we do have challenges in some of the economic, metrics that we are sort of judging ourselves by. And I believe that, job creation is a big concern. I think GST is also, something that needs to be tweaked very rapidly, because you can see that GST collections are not really reflecting the potential of what India Inc. Must do to really move the economic needle. And I do believe that we have many sectors which can be very buoyant sectors, provided we have the right policies in place. I know that, for instance, our own sector has had to basically seek a lot of clarificatory measures in terms of policies, which have actually dampened some of our business opportunities, made us less competitive. No doubt the government has responded to this positively, and I hope it's rolled out very fast, because I think course correction in a timely manner is going to be of the essence. And the longer we take to address certain economic challenges, I think we are going to really start facing the heat. So personally, I believe the government must concentrate very strongly on a lot of these economic challenges that we are facing today. Every sector is fraught with its own set of challenges. So I think it is important that the ministry is concerned actually put in a concerted effort to do course correction rapidly, so that the economy can come back onto a very strong keel.
Okay, fair enough. I have one more macro question for you before we get into the more specific points on Biocon, and that is, you've always been very candid about your political views as well. Are you disappointed that this government, which came in with an extraordinary mandate and very high popularity, has possibly not been able to deliver on the economic agenda that people like you hoped it would?
Well, I think there is some truth to that statement, because I believe that, we were expecting a lot from this government, and I think, the India Inc., for instance, certainly expected a lot of strong economic reforms. Unfortunately, this has taken a long time, and even the reforms that, that have been announced are not being rolled out in a timely manner. There is still a lot of tweaking to be done. I have been very vocal about the fact that GST is one of the biggest game changers for this country, but it hasn't been rolled out in an optimal way. I think course correction has to be very rapid if we are really to see the benefits of many of these economic reforms. And personally, I think we have seen a big hit in the job market. I know that many sectors, are not speaking up, but I know that they're very concerned. I know that the garment industry, for instance, is very concerned about what's happening to their own opportunities. I know there's been huge amounts of job losses on that particular front. I know that the whole healthcare sector, the hospital sector, is very concerned. Just yesterday, I was talking to a private hospital entrepreneur, and he was telling me that the way the government is clamping down on price control is not going to help this particular sector. So I think, in our anxiety to please the Aam Aadmi, and in that earnestness to do that, where the government does not take any responsibility but basically passes it on to the private sector, is not a healthy sign. And therefore I believe that the kind of reforms, the kind of pro-business policies that we were all anticipating has not happened to the level and extent that we expected.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, Kiran, the big news that came out on Friday was the marketing authorization of your important drug assembly in EU and Australia. So what's the way ahead now? How do you plan to monetize these two drugs in these two geographies that you got the approval in?
Well, as you know, this drug has been developed in partnership with Mylan, and Mylan has the commercial responsibility in the regulated markets. Mylan being a very successful market-facing company, I'm sure they will do everything that it takes to get an aggressive entry into these markets and get a good market share.
But what about the launches?
The plan is to basically enter these markets.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think the plan is to enter these markets. The plan is to enter these markets in the second half of this year.
Okay. But what's the strategy like? Will it be more of an aggressive launch that you're looking at, or will it be gradual? Because EU has almost 28 countries that are there. There are other member countries also. So will it be an aggressive launch that you're looking at, or will it be gradual and phased manner?
Well, as you know, even though Europe has these many country registrations to basically undergo, the fact is the key markets are about 5 or 6, and I'm sure Mylan will be addressing those key markets in the short term or the near term, and then gradually roll it out to the others. So I think that would be the strategy.
But what has been the response in places where this drug has already been launched? Because it has been launched in places like, Japan, Russia, some of the emerging markets. What's the response like to gauge a sense of how this drug is doing?
Well, all I can say is that, yes, this drug has been approved in many, many emerging markets. Most of these, approvals have come very recently. For instance, Russia, only recently approved our Glargine. Korea recently approved our Glargine. We have been in the market, for instance, in Mexico for several years now, and we have a pretty commanding position in Mexico in terms of the Glargine market. We have entered into the UAE market, and we are making good progress there. Japan has been another market where it is not a big opportunity. It was more symbolic to be in Japan. We expect the Japanese market to basically be a small market for us in terms of the overall global opportunity. But really the big opportunities are now going to be in US, Europe, and Australia, New Zealand. I think these are where I think Mylan is strong, and we believe that Mylan will make a very strong effort to get a good market share.
I'll take it from there, because US is an important market. So when can we expect more clarity to come in as far as the US approval is concerned? And secondly, what's the update on the Open 483 that is still there on the Malaysian facility?
Well, as far as US is concerned, there is a 30-month hold, as you probably know. And, as far as the Open 483 in Malaysia is concerned, I'm sure this will be closed out long before that. The CAPA has already been submitted to US FDA, and I think that will be closed out fairly soon. At least that's what we hope. But what is more important to consider in terms of the US launch is the 30-month hold.
Kiran, I just wanted to come in with a couple of quick questions, a little away from Semglee, and that has to do with, I know that you have in previous conversations, as also reported by my colleague in Bloomberg, said that you're looking to sell part of your stake in Syngene. Has there been any progress in that conversation? Is there anything new that we can, sort of know of in that process?
So let me clarify this particular question that you've asked me.
Okay.
I said this is one of the options we have,
Sure.
because I think someone asked me, how expensive is it to develop biosimilars, and we have an extending biosimilar pipeline. You know that we recently announced that partnership with Sandoz, and obviously these are very, very expensive products and programs to develop. And I think the reference I was making to was that we have many options to raise capital to back these kind of expensive developments. One of them being a stake sale in Syngene, but I did not quite deliberate on that, and I mean I just mentioned it as an option. I don't think we are in need of raising immediate capital that demands a stake sale in Syngene, but we have many options to raise capital, and we will come to that choice when the necessity arises.
Okay, fair enough. You also said, I think, in a previous conversation that you were expecting the European drug regulator to re-inspect the Bengaluru plant. Any progress on that front, or any news to report on that front?
Yeah, it has been inspected, but we are still waiting for the report. And once that is, received by us, we will certainly, let that be known. But hopefully, we will see how they have viewed this particular inspection, because I think they have looked at all the modifications and improvements that were made based on their previous inspection.
Kiran, it's a new fiscal, a lot of triggers ahead for Biocon. So wanted to know your views on that. First of all, is the target action date for pegfilgrastim that is coming up shortly? What are your anticipation? And the anticipated approval for trastuzumab in the European Union will probably come in the second half. So how will all this play up for Biocon going ahead?
Well, as you know, as a company pursuing biosimilars, we are the only company really addressing global opportunities out of India. I think this is an extremely crucial year for us. Last year has been a great year for us because of the trastuzumab approval that we got from the US, and of course we've ended the year with the Semglee approval from Europe. So that has absolutely got us off to a good start. I think this year we expect many more approvals like you've just mentioned. And I think biosimilars is certainly a business strategy that has worked well for us. We do not see aggressive competition for many years yet, because I think it's only now that many companies have started investing in biosimilars, and by the time these programs are developed and brought to the market, we know that it will take a few years yet for many of these companies to really start catching up. So I think from that point of view, we are very pleased that we are amongst the front runners, and that actually gives us an early mover advantage. I think having a partner like Mylan has been extremely good for us, because we are very confident that Mylan is going to look at the commercial opportunity in a way that really focuses on getting maximum market share. So we're looking forward to the next few years as being bonanza years for Biocon. I think we have basically vindicated ourselves in terms of making these big bets and big investments into biosimilars over the last several years, and I think today investors are beginning to feel very positive about the business model and the business strategy that we have adopted.
Kiran, one final quick word before we wrap up the interview on Semglee. Morgan Stanley believes that you could generate $70 to $100 million top line in two years. Is this something that you are working with? Well,
I think that's certainly very doable. I think the opportunity is much larger, but I do believe that that's a very doable target.
All right, Kiran, appreciate you joining us this morning. There are always more questions to ask, and there is time. Thanks very much for you finding the time to speak with us here at Bloomberg Queen.